Every single day, McDonald's sells around 6 million burgers. But here's the strange part. If burgers vanished tomorrow, McDonald's would still be one of the most profitable companies on earth. Because according to the man who built its business model, McDonald's is not technically in the food business at all. The Big Macs, the fries, the Happy Meals, they're bait. The real product is something you've walked across 1,000 times without ever noticing it. Over the next half hour, I'll show you how two brothers who hated expansion, a 52-year-old milkshake machine salesman, and a quiet finance genius accidentally built one of the largest real estate empires in human history. There's a betrayal sealed with a handshake. A corporate war fought over milkshake powder. A revolt by the company's own franchisees. And a Wall Street siege that McDonald's survived by refusing billions of dollars. By the end, you will never look at those golden arches, or the ground beneath them, the same way again. Because the most valuable thing McDonald's owns has never once appeared on the menu. Our story begins in 1948, in San Bernardino, California, where two brothers named Dick and Mac McDonald were about to break every rule in the restaurant business. Their drive-in was already successful. Car hops on roller skates, teenagers everywhere, 25 items on the menu. And the brothers were sick of all of it. The car hops flirted instead of serving. The teenagers loitered. The dishes vanished. The barbecue took forever. So they did something almost nobody in business ever does voluntarily. They shut down a profitable restaurant to rebuild it from scratch. They fired the car hops. They threw out the dishes and replaced them with paper. They cut 25 menu items down to 9. And they took their entire kitchen out to a tennis court, drew it in chalk at full scale, and had their staff walk through imaginary burger assembly, over and over, moving the chalk lines after each run, until every step, every reach, every spatula was choreographed like a factory line. They called it the Speedy Service System. A 15-cent hamburger, delivered in 30 seconds, made by nobody in particular and tasting exactly the same every time. When they reopened, business exploded. Families lined up around the block. The brothers were soon clearing enough money to buy a mansion and a trio of Cadillacs. And here's the part people forget. They were happy. They had no interest in conquering the world. Which was a problem, because the man about to walk through their door had interest enough for all three of them. In 1954, a 52-year-old milkshake machine salesman named Ray Kroc noticed something odd in his order book. One little burger stand in California had ordered 8 of his multi-mixers. 8. Enough to make 40 milkshakes at once. Most restaurants barely needed one. Kroc had spent 30 years selling paper cups and mixers, watching other men get rich. He drove out to San Bernardino expecting a fluke. What he found was a line of customers stretching down the street, being served faster than he thought physically possible, by a kitchen that ran like a Swiss watch. Kroc stood in that line, ate a 15-cent hamburger, and saw the future. He convinced the brothers to make him their national franchising agent. And in 1955, he opened his own first McDonald's in Des Plaines, Illinois, and began selling franchises across America. But look closely at the deal he signed, because it was terrible. Franchisees paid a service fee of 1.9% of sales. A quarter of that went straight to the brothers. Out of his sliver, Kroc had to run the entire national operation. Of every dollar a restaurant made, Ray Kroc was keeping about 1.5 cents. He was building an empire on commission, and the commission didn't cover his office rent. By the late 50s, McDonald's was famous, growing, beloved. And Ray Kroc, its supposed mastermind, was borrowing against his life insurance to make payroll. The most famous restaurant company in America was, quietly, going broke. And the contract wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was that Kroc was legally handcuffed to 2 men who didn't want what he wanted. Under the agreement, Kroc could change nothing without the brothers' written approval. Not the menu. Not the building design. Not the operations manual. And the brothers, comfortable in California, treated his grand ambitions as a nuisance. The war that defines this period was fought over, of all things, milkshakes. Real ice cream milkshakes need freezers, and freezers cost money. Kroc wanted to switch to a powdered milkshake mix that was cheaper, faster, and easier to store. The brothers thought it was an abomination and refused. Letters flew back and forth. Kroc, sitting on a mountain of debt, watching two rich brothers veto every efficiency he proposed, began to describe them in language we cannot repeat on this channel. Meanwhile, the brothers casually violated their own exclusivity promises, granting franchise rights in territories Kroc thought were his. Every month, the relationship curdled a little more. Understand what this means. The man running McDonald's day-to-day hated the men who owned it, owed money to everyone, and earned a commission too small to fix any of it. Something had to break. And then, in 1956, Ray Kroc hired a man who would render the entire argument irrelevant. A buttoned-up, chain-smoking former finance executive who looked at the burger business and saw something nobody else could see. His name was Harry Sunborn. Sunborn's insight was this: stop trying to make money selling hamburgers. Make money owning the land the hamburgers are sold on. Here's how it worked. A new subsidiary, Franchise Realty Corporation, would find a plot of land on a good corner and lease it from the landowner, long-term. Then it would sublease that land to the franchisee, with a markup of 40% or more. The franchise's rent came in two flavors: a percentage of sales if business was good, and a guaranteed minimum, in full, on time, if business was bad. Heads, McDonald's wins. Tails, the franchisee pays rent anyway. But the true genius was the security deposit. New franchisees handed over a deposit, thousands of dollars in cash, up front. Sunborn used half of it to fund the down payment on the next properties. In other words, McDonald's was buying an empire of American real estate, largely with its own tenants' money. And once the machine was running, the banks joined in happily, because loans secured by land are the kind banks actually like. Within a few years, the company stopped leasing and started buying the land outright. Restaurants funded the mortgages. The mortgages built the portfolio. The portfolio secured more loans. Ray Kroc had spent 5 years trying to get rich on 1.5 cents per burger dollar and nearly starved. Harry Sunborn turned the company into a landlord, and the money problem simply disappeared. Years later, Harry Sunborn stood in front of a room of Wall Street investors and said the quiet part out loud. "We are not technically in the food business. We are in the real estate business." He explained it with a salesman's simplicity. "The only reason we sell 15-cent hamburgers," he said, "is that they are the greatest producer of revenue, from which our tenants can pay us our rent." Read that again. The burgers exist to pay the rent. To this day, that remains one of the most clarifying sentences ever spoken about any business. And it came with a hidden weapon that mattered even more than the money: control. Under the old model, if a franchisee let the fries go cold, let the bathrooms get dirty, let the brand rot, McDonald's could threaten to revoke a franchise agreement, and then spend years fighting about it in court. Under Sunborn's model, McDonald's was the landlord, and a 20-year lease has teeth a franchise contract never had. Break the standards, lose the lease. Lose the lease, lose the restaurant you spent years building, because it's sitting on their land. Quality control, enforced through property law. This is why every McDonald's feels the same. Not because of trust. Because of leases. There was just one man left standing between this machine and total domination. Actually, two. The men whose name was on the sign. By 1961, Ray Kroc was done sharing. he called the brothers and asked their price for everything. The name, the system, the company. The brothers wanted $2.7 million, clean, after taxes. A fortune in 1961, and money Kroc did not have. He borrowed it, through a punishing loan arranged by Sanborn's financial contacts, and paid. But in the final negotiation, the brothers asked to keep one thing: their original restaurant in San Bernardino, the birthplace. And they say Kroc agreed to let them keep collecting their 0.5% royalty on a handshake, because writing it into the contract would have complicated his financing. That handshake was never honored. Not one payment. Today, 0.5% of McDonald's system sales would be worth over $100 million every single year. The brothers had sold the most valuable business system of the 20th century for the price of a nice office building. And Kroc wasn't finished. The brothers' one remaining restaurant could no longer be called McDonald's, because Kroc now owned the name. So they renamed it the Big M. And Ray Kroc opened a brand new McDonald's 1 block away, and slowly, deliberately, ran them out of business. Ruthless? Absolutely. Kroc never denied it. In his own memoir he wrote that if a competitor were drowning, you'd put a hose in his mouth. The nice guys had built the machine. The killer now owned it. With the brothers gone, McDonald's became a two-headed creature. Ray Kroc, the evangelist, who wanted a new restaurant on every corner in America. And Harry Sanborn, now the company's first president and chief executive, who saw a real estate trust that happened to smell like French fries. For a decade the partnership worked brilliantly. McDonald's went public in 1965, and the stock made both men rich beyond argument. But in 1967, the two philosophies finally collided. The economy was tightening. Sanborn, the numbers man, looked at rising interest rates and ordered a slowdown. Stop buying land. Stop building stores. Protect the balance sheet. Kroc, the believer, thought this was madness approaching treason. You don't stop building America's restaurant because money got expensive for a season. The fight turned cold, then personal. Kroc later said that at one point the two men communicated only through intermediaries, two executives running the same company, not speaking. It could only end one way. Sanborn resigned, took his fortune, and walked away from the empire his model had made possible. He barely ever spoke of it again. Kroc stamped the gas pedal, and McDonald's exploded across the American landscape, then the planet. Here's the irony history usually misses. Kroc won the fight. But he won it driving Sanborn's machine. Every new restaurant Kroc opened made the landlord richer. The evangelist provided the growth. The ghost of the money man collected the rent. Fast forward, and behold the machine at full size. More than 40,000 restaurants in over 100 countries. Roughly 95% of them run by franchisees. And underneath them, one of the largest commercial real estate portfolios on earth. Land and buildings worth tens of billions of dollars, sitting on the best corners, intersections, and highway exits in the world, collected patiently over 70 years like a monopoly player who never sells. The restaurants McDonald's runs itself bring in billions in sales, but the margins are thin. Food costs, wages, electricity, grease traps. The franchised restaurants are a different universe. McDonald's collects a royalty on every sale and rent on every location, while the franchisee pays for, well, everything else. The result is a profit margin on franchise income of over 80%. And of all the money McDonald's collects from its franchisees, roughly 2/3 of it is not the royalty. It's rent. Think about what this means. When a franchised restaurant has a great month, McDonald's gets a percentage. When it has a terrible month, McDonald's still gets the minimum rent, in full, on time. The burger can fail. The landlord gets paid. Analysts have estimated the real estate alone would make McDonald's one of the largest property companies in existence, before you count a single hamburger. That is not a restaurant business model. That is a fortress. And the machine translates. When McDonald's went abroad, it didn't just export burgers. It exported the land playbook, adapted to every legal system on earth. In most of Europe, McDonald's bought the corners outright, and today it is one of the largest restaurant landlords on the continent. In Japan, it partnered its way in, then quietly accumulated property through decades of joint ventures. And everywhere, it hunted the same prey. Not the best-looking building. The best intersection. The company employs teams whose entire job is real estate scouting. Traffic counts. Population growth curves. Highway exit patterns. Where a school will be built in 10 years. There's an old joke in commercial real estate that McDonald's knows a city's future better than its own mayor does, because McDonald's did the homework. And then there's the drive-through. Today, the majority of McDonald's sales in America roll through a window. Which means those unglamorous strips of asphalt, bought for nothing decades ago, became the single most productive square footage in the food industry. During the pandemic, when dining rooms across the planet went dark, competitors with beautiful interiors and no parking lots died in droves. McDonald's just redirected everything through the window and the app, and came out the other side stronger. Location, it turns out, isn't one advantage among many. Compounded over 70 years and 40,000 corners, location is the moat. Burgers can be copied. A better burger gets invented every year. Nobody can copy the corner of Main and Fifth because McDonald's already owns it. And it is never, ever selling. So what does it actually cost to stand inside the fortress? Say you want a McDonald's franchise today. First, McDonald's doesn't really care how much you can borrow. It wants to see serious unencumbered cash, usually between $1 and $2.3 million of total investment, with hundreds of thousands of that in liquid, non-borrowed money. You pay for the kitchen equipment, the seating, the signage, the staff, the food. Then, forever, you pay the system. A royalty of around 4% of every sale. And rent, which in most cases runs far higher, often between 8 and 15% of sales, several times larger than the royalty itself. Because remember, in the standard arrangement you can never buy the land. Not after 10 years. Not after 30. The ground under your business belongs to your franchisor, permanently, by design. And when McDonald's decides the brand needs a facelift, new digital menu boards, remodeled dining rooms, delivery integration, kiosks, the memo arrives at your restaurant, and the bill arrives with it. The franchisee writes the check for the landlord's vision. Why would anyone sign this deal? Because it works. The average McDonald's location generates around $3 to $4 million in annual sales, and a well-run franchise still leaves its operator a comfortable six-figure profit. The deal is one-sided, and it is also the most reliable small business mint ever invented. The line to get in has never been shorter than years long. Every fortress gets tested. This one has been shelled twice, and both times the land held. Test 1. 2008. The global financial system imploded. Restaurants died by the thousands as consumers stopped eating out. McDonald's sales went up. Cash-strapped customers traded down from casual dining to the dollar menu, and the rent from 40,000 corners kept flowing like a metronome. While banks begged for bailouts, McDonald's raised its dividend. Test 2. 2020. A pandemic closed every dining room the company had, on every continent, more or less simultaneously. For an ordinary restaurant chain, that is an extinction event. But McDonald's had spent 70 years collecting corner lots with room for cars to queue. The drive-through lane, that unglamorous strip of asphalt, became the most valuable real estate in the food industry overnight. Within months, sales were recovering toward records while sit-down competitors were still filing for bankruptcy. Notice what both tests proved. It was never really about the burgers. In good times, the percentage rent rises. In terrible times, the minimum rent holds. In a crisis that closes the building, the land itself, the corner, the drive-through lane, the location, carries the company through. Recessions come and go. Pandemics come and go. Trends, mascots, and menu items come and go. The rent gets paid. Naturally, Wall Street looked at all that land and started salivating. In 2015, with the stock stagnating and activist investors circling, the demand grew loud. Spin off the real estate. Put the land into a separate listed property trust, a REIT, collect the tax advantages, and unlock what analysts said could be billions in instant shareholder value. Hedge funds ran the numbers and pushed hard. The financial press piled on. From a spreadsheet's point of view, it was free money. McDonald's studied the idea for months. And then it said no. Publicly, permanently, no. Because the executives understood something the spreadsheets didn't price. Selling the land meant selling the two things the land actually provides. The first is control. The lease is the leash. Spin the property into a separate company, and McDonald's becomes just another tenant negotiating with just another landlord, and the quality machine Sunborn built collapses into contract law. The second is the river. That guaranteed rent, flowing in booms, recessions, and pandemics alike, is what lets McDonald's borrow cheaply, raise dividends for decades straight, and sleep through crises that kill its competitors. Trading a permanent river for a one-time flood is how empires end. The activists eventually moved on to easier prey. The fortress kept its foundations. And the stock, by the way, went on to hit all-time highs. The market wanted McDonald's to be clever. McDonald's chose to stay rich. But every fortress has people living inside its walls, and in 2018, the tenants revolted. Remember the math. When sales dip, the royalty dips with them. The rent doesn't. When headquarters orders a remodel, digital menu boards, delivery integration, a kitchen overhaul for a new menu, the franchisee writes the check. And through the 2010s, those checks kept getting bigger. Remodels costing hundreds of thousands of dollars per store. Technology mandates. Discount promotions that juiced corporates' royalty numbers while gutting the operators' margins. So for the first time in the company's 70-year history, the operators organized. Hundreds of American franchisees formed an independent owners association, a union of landlords' tenants, to push back against the very company whose sign they wore. They demanded a say in remodel schedules. Relief on costs. Respect. And here is what tells you everything about who holds the power. The company listened politely, adjusted a timeline here and a subsidy there, and continued exactly as before. Because the fundamental math never changes. For every operator who walks away from a McDonald's franchise, there is a line of applicants stretching around the block, cash in hand, begging for that corner. It is, quite possibly, the most one-sided long-term relationship in modern business. And it is also, undeniably, one of the most successful. The average American McDonald's still clears millions in sales a year, and an operator who follows the system still gets rich. Slowly. On rented land. The bait, it turns out, is delicious for everyone. The landlord just eats first. Ray Kroc put it best in his own autobiography. I'm not in the hamburger business. My business is real estate. It's one of the great business secrets hiding in plain sight, and once you see it everywhere. Movie theaters are really popcorn companies. Airlines make their money selling credit card miles. Gyms profit from the members who never show up. The product that gets you in the door is almost never the product that pays for the building. Two brothers invented the perfect restaurant. A salesman turned it into a religion. And a quiet finance man made sure the church owned the ground under every altar. 60 years later, recessions come and go, burger trends come and go, activist investors come and go. The rent gets paid. So the next time you're standing in a McDonald's, holding a burger that costs a few dollars, take a moment and look down at the floor. Because the most valuable thing in that building was never on the menu. It was under your feet the entire time. If you enjoyed this story, a like and a subscribe genuinely help the channel more than you know. There is a new business story on the way. See you in the next one.